Starting on August 13th, I'll be streaming Dauntless from Monday to Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Feel free to drop on by, follow the stream, and hopefully enjoy the content I create. With that out of the way, let's dip right into the video. The coming storm delivered a new questline, introduced us to the Ostians, and put grenades into the hands of eager slayers. But that's not the only thing that came with the coming storm. From within the Maelstrom and beyond the Diatic Drift, the Sovereign of Thorns awaits. Koshai is the new behemoth that came with the deployment of the coming storm, alongside the Sovereign's throne, an island composed of dense thickets, mountain caves, and lacerating thorns. Today we'll be going over the encounter with Koshai, covering his known moveset and the mechanics at play during the fight. When you approach Koshai, the first thing he'll do is slam his fist into the ground. This attack spawns a cluster of thorns in a random area within the arena, with a bulbous mass centered in its wake. Thorns will heavily reduce Slayer movement and will deal damage while attempting to move through them. You cannot dodge while trapped, leaving you with the option to slice your way free. Destroying the mass will remove the thorns completely, though individual patches of thorns can also be removed through Slayer attacks. I find that the Drask Lantern works well at displacing large sections of thorns with ease, giving you more freedom of movement through the fight. Ultimately, the thorns aren't problematic enough to be focused on during the early stages of the fight, but may become an annoyance as the battle continues and more thorns spawn. At medium to long distance with Koshai, he'll send a rain of thorns down upon you with deadly accuracy. Being struck by these will inflict the wounded status, meaning that you'll be more susceptible to his attacks, as well as being in danger of sustaining massive damage when you run out of stamina. Because of this, it's best to avoid this rain of thorns at all costs, with a well-timed roll, or with some tricky maneuvering. Within medium to close range, Koshai will perform a leaping attack in your direction. Luckily, the attack is somewhat slow, making the attack almost painfully easy to dodge. Don't be fooled, however. Like all behemoths, a poorly timed roll could spell disaster, especially when combined with the threat of thorn-laden ground. At close range, Koshai will perform various attacks based on your position around his body. When near his head or front arms, he will either swipe at you with either of his claws or rear back before delivering a frontal charge. If you're stationed near the rear legs or the tail, he will perform a tail swipe that sweeps in both directions before concluding. Both this and the frontal charge are executed rapidly and give little room for reaction. After beating on Koshai for a bit, he'll enter his enraged state. The animation for this transition is very brief, but the knockdown that stems from it can be ignored through either a well-timed dodge or staying positioned near the end of his tail. At some points in the fight, Koshai will disappear into a mass of vines for some time. During solo play, he will re-emerge somewhere within the arena, and depending on his proximity, will perform another fist slam or continue attacking as usual. Deeper into the fight, Koshai will become Aether Charged, sprouting antlers and augmenting his limbs with sinewy vines. This is the only time where Koshai's antlers can be broken and collected as behemoth parts. Keep in mind that the head and antlers do not share health and function independently of one another. Also, if the tail was severed before Koshai enters this state, it will grow back into place once more as a mass of vines. If Koshai enrages during its Aether Charge, a unique animation will be played and Koshai will temporarily shroud itself in a thick, spherical veil of Aether. This shield blocks projectiles and stops stamina regen while inside. Currently, this seems to have a little bit of a strange interaction with stamina tonics. To conclude with Koshai's moveset, there are a couple of attacks that happen somewhat infrequently but do deserve some description, particularly the last one. Koshai will sometimes slam both fists into the ground instead of one. This usually happens while he's Aether Charged, but I'm pretty sure it can happen outside of this. Koshai will, at some point during the fight, ascend a spire of vines and pause for a moment. If you deal high enough damage, this will actually cause an interrupt and reward you with a window for DPS. If you don't manage to interrupt him in some way, he'll send a spinning lotus into the air that, upon contact with the ground, will violently explode into a pair of grasping vines, dealing a moderate amount of damage. The battle against Koshai rewards patience, as reckless attacks and aggression without pacing will only reward failure. Keep a level head, and constantly keep aware of the fight and your positioning to help you gauge whether it's time to attack or time to prepare for a dodge. As a sword main, the build I recommend is one that utilizes the power of Rage and Wild Frenzy, allowing you to dish out massive damage at the cost of fighting at a lower life threshold. If you're uncomfortable or otherwise inexperienced with this type of build, try to go for a build that prioritizes stagger damage and the exploitation of the Overpower cell, which gives increasing levels of raw damage against staggered behemoths. Here's a couple of miscellaneous tips. When utilizing a weapon that provides forward movement during its damage combos, you can attack to free yourself from a thorn trap without sustaining damage from the thorns. Or, you could just destroy the thorns with a few meaty swings, whichever works for you, honestly. Keep mobile, as mobility and maneuverability is key to staying alive during this fight. Constantly relocating and adjusting your positioning can make the difference between a completed hunt or a forced retreat. And last of all, keep at it. Persistence and a willingness to better oneself will inevitably triumph, and through adversity you'll have sharpened the tools you need to take on the Sovereign of Thorns. Also, as a side note, I didn't know this when I was recording this, but when Koshai is Aether Charged, his big viney limbs actually gain range on their claw swipes. It's pretty neat, and it looks really weird, actually. He goes full-on Mr. Fantastic. It's incredible. Thank you all so much for watching this video. It means a lot to me to know that my content is beneficial to the community in some way. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Leave a like, share with your friends, and subscribe. Keep up to date with future videos. I have plans to make a video covering what I believe to be the most useful grenade and sharing an unorthodox build centered around its properties. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you later. Take it easy, guys.